The time by Caracas is 6 p.m. and this is CBX Business News. The business news headlines are brought to you by QMax Wealth Management, making more possible. Earnings tumble, Guyana grows, and Canada builds. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Friday, August 7, 2026. I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, JMMB reports a 50% decline in annual net profit despite stronger revenue and a sharp improvement in core operating performance. Also ahead, IMF says Guyana's economy grew more than 19% in 2025, supported by robust oil and non-oil activity. And later, Canada unveils a $2.7 billion housing agreement to deliver more than 5,600 new rental homes. Stay with us as we unpack these stories and more right after the break.
I'm trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
I'm also trading stocks to achieve my financial goals.
Start a conversation with the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Check jamstockx.com for information and a list of registered stockbrokers. You can also call the Jamaica Stock Exchange at 876-967-3271 for information on how to begin. I am achieving my financial goals.
I'm achieving my financial goals.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimont Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments. Welcome back to CBX Business News. As discussions on reparatory justice continue, President of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, says the conversation is evolving to address the region's long-term economic challenges. Speaking during a reparatory justice dialogue at the University of the West Indies, Mona, during his recent state visit to Jamaica, Mahama says, while financial compensation remains part of the discussion, the broader objective is to address the lasting economic effects of slavery and colonialism and improve living standards. Mahama says the next phase of the reparations movement should focus on economic emancipation.
But today we're faced with a new fight, and that is why the relationships between us and visits like this are important. Because the battle that confronts us now is not the battle for liberation. We're independent anyway. The battle that confronts us is how we can cooperate to increase our economic development, create prosperity for our people. And so the battle now is a battle for economic emancipation. And I'm happy that I had the opportunity to visit Jamaica for the first time.
He says reparatory justice should tackle the structural economic challenges that continue to affect countries across Africa and the Caribbean. He says the reparations agenda should ultimately improve people's lives.
It's not just about financial compensation. It's about acknowledging, it's about expressing regret. It's about healing. It's about addressing the consequences of what slavery and colonialism did to our countries. It's about addressing those enduring consequences and changing the global order so that it gives us a fighting chance to create a better life for our people.
That was President of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama. JMMB Group says its annual net profit fell by 50% despite recording stronger revenue and a significant improvement in its core operating performance. The financial services group reported a net profit of $1.87 billion for the year ended March 2026, down from $3.74 billion a year earlier. However, net operating revenue increased 15% to $29.07 billion, driven by higher net interest income, stronger foreign exchange margins, and increased fee income. The group's core operating result also nearly tripled to $4.11 billion. JMMB says the decline in net profit reflected a lower contribution from Sagicor Financial Company, the absence of gains recorded in the previous year, and the loss of a $1.95 billion tax credit that had boosted last year's earnings. The group also opened its first digital smart branch at 102 Hope Road in St. Andrew, expanding its digital banking strategy. The facility offers self-service banking, digital account opening, online loan applications, and stock trading. JMMB says 49% of its customers now bank exclusively through digital channels. The group says it will continue investing in digital banking, including expanding digital loan processing, onboarding, and real-time banking services across its regional operations. And Supreme Ventures Limited recorded a 20% increase in profit before tax for the first 6 months of 2026. The gaming company reported profit before tax of 1.97 billion Jamaican dollars, while net profit increased 14% to 1.48 billion dollars. Total gaming income also rose 4.7% to $29 billion. Speaking during an investor briefing on Tuesday, Assistant Vice President of Investment Banking at Mayberry Investments Limited, Rachel Curlew, says Supreme Ventures Limited's profit before tax outpaced revenue growth, reflecting stronger operating leverage.
We're seeing here that total gaming income increased 4.7% to 29 billion. Gross profit is up also 4% to 6.63 billion. Profit before tax, however, jumped 20% to 1.97 billion. So we're immediately seeing that profit is growing at a faster pace than revenues. So definitely some operating leverage there. Net profit also increased double digit to 14%, growing to 1.48 billion. And finally, total comprehensive income increased 27% to 1.5 billion. EPS now stands at $56.13. Q2 profit on a standalone basis, their pre-tax profit that's up now is $1 billion, or 1.03 billion. Cash and cash equivalent, which is my favorite line here, is $1.96 billion, a 37% increase versus December's figure.
That was Assistant Vice President of Investment Banking at Mayberry Investments Limited, Rachel Curlew. Meanwhile, Executive Chairman of Supreme Ventures Limited, Gary Peart, says the company's core business continues to generate strong earnings while strategic investments are beginning to contribute to future growth. Peart outlined how the company plans to deploy its cash, saying it will reduce debt, increase dividends, and maintain the flexibility to pursue future acquisitions.
We're happy with the return on the cash because I know some of our shareholders weren't happy about, the inconsistency with the dividends. I think where we're not, where we are now, we expect to see a consistent growth in dividend, because two things. We're starting to pay down the debt. As you pay down the debt, the finance cost is going to start to fall. Obviously, this is subject to us not making a big acquisition, which is also a possibility going forward. But outside of that, we're seeking to generate significantly more cash. We're in a space where we're likely to see that. And the expectation is that the dividend will continue to increase on a quarterly basis. And so that's how we're dealing with the cash, basically in three different buckets. One is to start to pay down debt principal. Two is to pay pay increased dividends. And the third bucket is for any potential acquisition that we see out there to finance that. So, as I said, sunshine and happy days are here again.
Executive Chairman of Supreme Ventures Limited, Gary Peart. In other news, Lasco Manufacturing has reported a 9% increase in net profit for its first quarter ended June 30, 2026. The company earned 674 million Jamaican dollars during the quarter, up from $618 million a year earlier. Profit before taxation also increased to $866 million, while revenue rose 7% to $3.13 billion. Gross profit climbed 9% to $1.22 billion, with the gross profit margin improving to 39.1%. Selling and administrative expenses increased 16% to $443 million, largely due to foreign exchange losses and temporary increases in logistics costs. Despite those higher costs, operating profit rose 5% to $885 million, with the operating margin remaining broadly in line with last year at 28.3%. The company also reported a stronger balance sheet, with total assets increasing 11% to $21.9 billion, while cash and bank balances rose by $1.36 billion to $9.11 billion, compared with the corresponding period last year. Looking ahead, Lasco Manufacturing says geopolitical tensions, trade uncertainty, and supply chain disruptions remain potential headwinds. However, the company says it remains focused on driving volume growth, expanding margins, and delivering sustainable growth for shareholders. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Friday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 120 stocks, of which 37 advanced, 64 declined, and 19 traded firm. Leading the winners are Spur Tree Spices Jamaica, Elite Diagnostic, One Great Studio Company, and MFS Capital Partners, while leading the losers are Sagicor Real Estate X Fund, Jamaica Public Service Company 7%, Edufocal, and Fosrich Company. The main index declined by 2,338.95 points to close at 374,380.23 points. The junior market index declined by 50.07 points to close at 2,875.60 points.
It's time for the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
In today's Market Education feature, we will be talking about yield on earning assets. The yield on earning assets is a financial ratio that measures how effectively a financial institution generates interest income from its earning assets. It is calculated by comparing interest income to average earning assets. A higher yield indicates stronger income generating efficiency, enhancing the institution's ability to meet its short-term obligations. Financial managers and regulators use this ratio to assess financial performance, monitor overall financial health, and support operational and strategic decision-making.
That was the Market Education feature, brought to you by CARICRIS, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Derrimon Trading, better from the start. The Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
This project marks a celebration of our 30th Hall of Fame and aims to highlight the achievements, challenges, and invaluable lessons of those who have shaped and are shaping the future of our economy. Our aim is to celebrate the voices and stories of 30 remarkable leaders in Jamaica's private sector. Join us as we explore these narratives of resilience, leadership, and vision.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has concluded its latest Article 4 review of Guyana's economy, saying the country's rapid growth is expected to continue. The fund says Guyana's economy grew by more than 19% in 2025, driven by strong growth in both the oil and non-oil sectors. Oil production surpassed 900,000 barrels per day by the end of last year, while the non-oil economy expanded by about 14%, led by construction, agriculture, mining, and manufacturing. The IMF also noted improvements in Guyana's fiscal and external positions, saying prudent macroeconomic policies, continued public investment, and the accumulation of oil revenues have helped sustained growth, strengthen economic stability, and support diversification. Looking ahead, the fund says Guyana's economic outlook remains highly favorable. It projects the non-oil economy will grow by an average of about 7% over the next 5 years, while higher oil production is expected to strengthen export earnings and the country's fiscal position. However, it cautioned that global uncertainty, oil price volatility, and climate-related shocks remain key risks to the outlook. The IMF is also encouraging Guyana to maintain prudent fiscal and monetary policies, continue strengthening governance, and save a larger share of additional oil revenues if prices remain elevated. The government of Guyana says it is proceeding with plans to establish a state-owned bottled water facility under Guyana Water Incorporated, GWI. The National Assembly has approved 496.3 million Guyanese dollars for the plant, which the government says will reduce bottled water imports, improve access to affordable drinking water, and strengthen national self-sufficiency. The Guyana Manufacturing and Services Association has raised concerns that a government-operated plant could compete unfairly with established local manufacturers. The association supports Guyana's goal of producing all the bottled water it consumes locally, but argues that public investment should strengthen existing manufacturers instead of potentially displacing private capital. Meanwhile, President Irfan Ali has rejected the suggestion that GWI is entering the market simply to compete with private companies. He maintains that the utility has a responsibility to provide safe and affordable drinking water, and that the proposed production lines will target several bottle sizes while helping to reduce consumer prices.
The local manufacturers should ask themselves why foreign water is here displacing them. Why do we have foreign water coming to Guyana and displace local producers? Right? It's a question of ensuring that there are some products that are social in nature, And when you look at the price of water across the region and internationally and water here, we have a duty and a responsibility to the people. So it's just arriving at that situation where there is balance.
That was President of Guyana, Dr. Irfan Ali. In other news, Tobago Festivals Commission says the 2026 Tobago Heritage Festival delivered important economic and cultural benefits across the island. The recently concluded festival supported performers, designers, caterers, transportation providers, accommodation operators, and numerous small community businesses. Chief Executive Officer Kern Cowan says the festival also encouraged greater community participation and created opportunities for young Tobagonians to become involved in preserving and commercializing the island's cultural traditions. Organizers are now examining this year's execution to identify improvements ahead of the festival's 40th anniversary.
You saw that with all of the involvement from each village. One of the things that I saw that was very interesting is that small community shops and some more community businesses started sponsoring and being able to assist with even the internal workings of many of the village events. You saw that significantly in places like Pembroke and Mariah, where small businesses actually sponsored, assisted with practices and all of those things that allowed for the missing elements that people don't pay attention to or may not even see, to help ensure that there was coordination.
That was Chief Executive Officer of the Tobago Festivals Commission, Kern Cowan. It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 22 securities, of which 5 advanced, 7 declined, and 10 traded firm. Today's winners are NCB Financial Group, Ansa McCall, Trinidad and Tobago NGL, and First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, while leading the losers are One Caribbean Media, JMMB Group, National Enterprises, and the West Indian Tobacco Company. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index advanced by 0.69 points to close at 1,433.03. The Composite Index advanced by 2.50 points to close at 1,006.36. The Cross-Listed Index advanced by 0.63 points to close at 77.04, and the SME Index remained at 75.33. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up next.
It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Feeling so good right now. Yeah, yeah. It's feeling so good right now. Don't ever, ever, ever wanna calm down. No, no, no. Yeah, yeah.
Welcome back. In international news, the federal government has announced a 2.7 billion Canadian dollar housing agreement with the city of Toronto, aimed at accelerating rental construction and improving housing affordability through a mix of direct investments in Canada. Speaking at a press briefing in Toronto on Thursday, Prime Minister Mark Carney says the funding will support more than 18 housing projects across the city over the next 3 years. The initiative is expected to deliver more than 5,600 new rental homes, including over 1,800 deeply affordable, supportive, or rent-controlled units.
We're starting by creating more than 5,600 new rental homes that a broad range of Torontonians can afford. North of 1,800 of those homes will be deeply affordable, supportive, or rent-controlled. Thank you.
Carney says construction will begin quickly, with more than 80% of the projects expected to have shovels in the ground before the end of the year, representing over 4,500 homes.
And we're moving fast. You see the shovels behind me. We will have shovels in the ground on 80% of this portfolio. That means more than 4,500 homes by the end of this year. Yeah. As I suggested at the start, every home in this portfolio will be a rental. And they span together the entire continuum of rental housing, from supportive to affordable homes. And it's a partnership that builds on every component of a healthy housing ecosystem. So what is...
That was Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. Greece's trade deficit narrowed to 2.6 billion euros in June 2026, down from 3.2 billion euros in the same month of 2025, although it remained the widest monthly deficit recorded over the past 3 months. Exports jumped 26.3% year-on-year to 5 billion euros, fueled by stronger sales to both EU member states and non-EU countries. At the same time, imports increased 6.5% to 7.6 billion euros, reflecting higher purchases from both EU countries and third countries. For the first half of 2026, the cumulative trade deficit narrowed to 15.1 billion euros, compared with 16.9 billion euros during the same period a year earlier. Canada's IV PMI declined to 55.1 in July 2026 from 56.2 in June, coming in slightly below market expectations of 55.5. Despite the decrease, the index remained in expansionary territory. The July reading marked the second consecutive monthly decline and the weakest level since March. The employment index also softened, easing to 52.2 from 53.6, though it continued to indicate job creation. Meanwhile, the prices index climbed to 75.5 from 73.7, pointing to intensifying cost pressures. The supplier deliveries index improved to 45.9 from 44.3 after holding relatively steady near 44 since April, while the inventories index advanced to 54.9 from 50.9, remaining in expansionary territory. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of the break.
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the QMAX possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why QMAX Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
And now to recap our top stories. In the local news, JMMB reports 50% decline in annual net profit. Regionally, IMF says Guyana's economy grew more than 19% in 2025. And internationally, Canada announces a $2.7 billion housing deal. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rashel Moncrieffe. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
FESCO started from 5 shareholders who believe that they could execute a fuel company as good as or as better than any multinational. The director shareholders always believe that the dealers within our network should be owners of the company. They believe that staff should be owners of the company. And specifically also believe that the public should become shareholders. That cannot be facilitated